Welcome to the Aries Code Engine demo, where we automate software development. During this presentation, we're going to discuss what ACE is exactly and what does it do. We're going to review what kind of projects ACE would benefit, see how ACE fits into a typical software development lifecycle, review the steps Aries would take in building a solution for you with ACE, and finally, we are going to show the use of the tool in building a solution end-to-end. So what is ACE and what does it do? In simple terms, ACE is the automation of software programming. Think of it as if you had a robot programmer working for you. Just like a human programmer, you would give them a series of commands such as what to build, how to structure it, and for what platform you need it for, essentially telling them what solution you are after. With ACE, because of how it works, that programmer is able to create your solution using standardized structure, process, and conventions. Because he's a robot, he can create the code so rapidly that it allows you to get to testing your end solution in a fraction of the normal time. This gives your project savings in time, resource costs, yet because of ACE's ability to precisely follow your standards and procedures, creating consistent code using a repeatable process results in a dramatic increase in quality, making QA a key benefit of using ACE in your project. Further, you're able to capture the knowledge of decades of work into a tool that can then pass it along to any new project you start. Think of all the savings in time, money, and stress ACE could deliver in all the projects you are involved in. Projects like ETL, new development, migration, enhancements, maintenance, or integration work. ACE is used daily by our teams at Aries, saving us thousands of man-hours. Now that you understand what ACE can do, you can see that ACE is an essential component to the day-to-day efforts of any IT project that has to touch code in any way. This is because with ACE involved, you gain predictable results, assure that you have a repeatable process and structure for every project. Here is a simple high-level view of how ACE fits into a typical software development lifecycle. As you can see, ACE complements and enhances key areas that will affect the overall success of the project. In building a solution with ACE, here's what Aries does. Just like a typical software development lifecycle, we define the solution or the need. We then take all of that information, define the data structure, solution architecture, software architecture, process, and then the other components that are necessary for the solution to be successful. Taking this information, we import it into ACE using either manual entry or wizards or tools that are accompanied with ACE, creating all the different components that you can think of that would be necessary in building out the end solution, such as defining UIs, defining all of the different fields, defining all of the different ETL jobs, etc. Once we have this, we next now define how the output will look like. Is there an iOS application? Is there an Android, .NET component, services, or any other component that would build up the solution? And we define where those components are going to be placed and built. We link them to any kind of source control or any other items that we need where we want to keep versioning. Finally, combining the above, we create our templates, essentially telling the robot what we want built and what the different decisions are for the different components. What that means is that how is ACE going to build out the solution so that it's complete, not just code generated? We then take the completed code that ACE generates and then bring them into the different IDEs that we're using, such as Visual Studio, Eclipse, NetSuite, any of those things that we would use typically in building a complete solution. Now that we understand how ACE works and how it fits into the overall software development lifecycle and what the steps are in building a solution, we're going to go into an actual demo of building a solution end-to-end. Welcome to the Aries Code Engine demo. During this demo, we're going to go over how the ACE tool is structured and used, and then we're going to build an end-to-end solution, which is going to be a .NET-based content management system. Aries is going to also release this .NET content management system to the public as an open source CMS. Let's review the components of ACE: the data structure, the output folders, and the templates. Combined, they make up the pieces that we need to build a solution. Now let's look at the ACE core dictionary, which makes ACE what it is. These pieces allow ACE to translate languages, data pieces for transformations, and all the different components that make ACE intelligent in building your end solution rapidly. Now let's go over how ACE is used for ETL jobs. In this screen, we're going to be able to define our different data points or data sets that have been already imported and then create mappings between them. So let's begin building our new solution. We start by naming the new project. Next, we're going to define our data structure, and we can do this in a number of ways. In this case, we're going to go ahead and import the data structure from an existing database that we've created. We can use a number of different databases. In this case, we're using OLEDB, but the capability exists to import from any database that's out there. Once the process is complete, now we have all your tables and as well as all their fields in the new project. Now that we have our structure in place, we're going to just go ahead and quickly save our project just to keep track of our progress. You can also see that the ACE structure is a little bit different than just the tables and their fields. It's made up of the relationships and all of the other components that help us define what we want our end solution to look like, such as UI, data structure, controls, and other components that help us define how our user interface is going to work, look, and function. What I'm doing here now is defining what I want the tooltips to be, the labels to look like, and how things are going to be searchable throughout the system for each one of these fields. Further, I also want to define just different control types, data types, and functionality that ACE will use in building my different code. You'll notice that many of these components are coming up pre-populated. During the import, I selected for ACE to glean from the data structure and the data type pre-defined structures for these so that a lot of the work is saved for me and I just have to add rather than create from scratch. Now that we completed our data structure, we're going to move on to our output. Here we're going to tell ACE specifically where do we want our different outputs to be saved for us to use in our IDEs that we'll see later on during the process. Now that we've completed this process, we're going to move on to our building our templates out. Each template that you'll see us building here is based on our internal architecture for building new solutions. So we have our data classes, our data interactions, our data maps, and so on and so forth. And you'll see how each one of those pieces will fit into play in the end solution. Now that we've completed building our templates, we're ready to build our end solution. This is all the SQL statements, the views, the HTML pages, the data classes, everything that we need to have our end solution built. And finally, our product is complete, and we're going to go ahead and start moving all the components into Visual Studio for further processing. And finally, our product is complete, and we're going to go ahead and start moving all the components into Visual Studio for further processing. Next, we're going to go ahead and start building our end solution. We start by creating the database, but as you can see, here's all the different outputs that ACE created for us. Here's the SQL statements that it created where we're going to create our database. So I'm going to be doing a lot of copy pasting in the next couple of screens, taking different code bases and copying and pasting them into the different IDEs for use. Now we're ready to move into our actual solution, bringing over all the different code bases that we created in ACE. Keep in mind that a lot of this code base is just copy paste. I'm not going into the individual files to edit them or modify them, so it's very raw, and it's really based on how I structure the templates in our prior steps. So now it looks like we have a complete solution. All we have to do now is go through and seed our database. Now I'm going to quickly go through and start compiling the different components just to make sure that there's no bugs or any typos in the template that we created all this stuff in ACE. And it looks like everything is working well, so let's go ahead and run our new solution with our new content management system. See what it all looks like. And here we are, our new content management system, all built right in front of you using ACE. Now what I'm going to do is quickly go into the admin area where all the canned pages ACE created for us. We can kind of go through and see what those look like. Again, these are all components built right out of ACE. I didn't modify anything. And you can see there's some script errors in the JavaScript, but pretty much all the pages are there. And there you go, a complete end-to-end solution built in ACE right in front of you. Hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and we look forward to working with you.